Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's me again, Golden Blue Dude. Hey, and if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. We've already reached 5,000 subscribers, but we have a lofty goal of 10,000 subscribers by the end of this year. I know we can do it, but we can't do it without your help. So if you like the content, you want more access to it, hit the like and subscribe button. Or if you just want to talk trash to me, that works too. We've also revamped the Patreon page, a much wider range of levels to select from, whether you want a little bit of Golden Blue Dude or a lot of Golden Blue Dude. There's something for everybody. And also my live shows. I actually have a live show this evening on Saturday, 7 p.m. and also a live show on Monday at 7 p.m. And I think we'll reserve the Saturday shows for the call-in show. So we'll have a call-in show this evening. Anyways, let's talk about today's video. And today's video is going to be ranking the schedules of the Big Ten teams. I've already done the Big 12 and the SEC. Now here's the criteria. I'll look at out-of-conference, of course. I'll look at the road games. And I'll look at who they drew from the other side of the conference. So if they're in the West Division, I'll look at who they drew from the East Division. If they're in the East Division, I'll look at who they drew from the West Division. Here we go. Number 14, the team that I think that has the easiest schedule in the Big Ten, in my opinion, is Purdue. Last year they went 9-4. Here's their home slate. They drew Penn State from the East, who went 7-6. Indiana State is their FCS. FAU from Conference USA, who went 5-7. Nebraska 3-9, Iowa 10-4, and Northwestern 3-9. Now here's their road slate. A little tricky, but not all that difficult. They drew Syracuse out of the ACC. They went 5-7. Minnesota on the road 9-4. Maryland from the East, who went 7-6. Wisconsin, who went 9-4. Illinois, they can be tricky. They went 5-7. And Indiana, the worst team of the East, who was 2-10. And that's why I have Purdue as the easiest schedule. Not saying it's an easy schedule. They didn't draw the toughest teams from the East, and their road slate isn't all that bad, not to mention they're out of conference. Number 13, the next easiest schedule in the Big Ten is going to be Michigan. Last year they went 12-2. Here's their home slate. They drew Colorado State out of the Mountain West, who went 3-9. They drew Hawaii out of the Mountain West, who went 6-7. They drew lowly UConn, an independent who went 1-11, a very bad independent. They get Maryland at home 7-6, Penn State at home 7-6, Michigan State at home 11-2, Nebraska at home 3-9, and Illinois at home 5-7. Here's their road slate, just 4 road trips. One of the reasons why they're lower on the list. 2 of them are really tough, but the other 2, not all that tough. They go on the road to Iowa 10-4. Kinnick is a tough place to win at. They go on the road to Indiana, who was a terrible 2-10. They go on the road to Rutgers, who was 5-8. And then finally on the road to Ohio State, who was 11-2. So those 2 road tests are what kept Michigan above Purdue. Coming in at number 12 in the Big Ten. The next easiest schedule. That's going to be Northwestern. They went 3-9 last year. Here's their home slate. They drew Duke out of the ACC 3-9. Southern Illinois is their FCS. Miami of Ohio out of the MAC, who went 7-6 last year. They get Wisconsin at home and went 9-4. They did draw Ohio State, but it is at home, 11-2. And Illinois, who went 5-7. Here's their road slate. This is a little tricky. It's not the most difficult road slate, but it's a little tricky. They go on the road to Nebraska, who I think has a bounce-back year this year, 3-9 last year. They go on the road to Penn State, tricky to win in those whiteouts. They went 7-6 last year. On the road to Maryland, who was 7-6. On the road to Iowa, Kinnick, tough to play at, 10-4. On the road to Minnesota, a much improved team, 9-4. And on the road to Purdue. They were 9-4 last year. I think Purdue's going to be pretty good this year as well. Coming in at number 11 on this list, and that's going to be Michigan State. Last year they went 11-2. Here's their home slate. They drew Western Michigan out of the MAC, who went 8-5. Akron out of the MAC, who went 2-10. Minnesota at home, who went 9-4. They get Ohio State at home, 11-2. Wisconsin's a home game, 9-4. Rutgers is going to be at home 5-8, and finally they get Indiana at home, who went 2-10. This is a little bit of a rough road slate. They go on the road to Washington out of the Pac-12, but Washington was 4-8 last year. However, that's a tough, long road trip. They also have to go on the road to Maryland, who went 7-6, on the road to Michigan, who went 12-2. On the road to underrated Illinois, who went 5-7, but upset a couple of teams last year. And also on the road to Penn State, that whiteout is tough to win at. They went 7-6 last year. Number 10 on this list, and that's going to be the Illinois Illini. Last year they went 5-7. Here's their home slate. I like their out of conference. They kind of stepped it up a little bit. They grabbed Wyoming. That's going to be a home game out of the Mountain West. They went 7-6. They grabbed Virginia out of the ACC, 6-6. Chattanooga is their FCS team. Then they get Iowa at home. They were 10-4. Minnesota at home, who were 9-4. Michigan State's a home game. They were 11-2 last year. And Purdue is a home game this year. They were 9-4 last year. Here's their road slate. This is going to be tough for Illinois. They have to go on the road to Indiana. That might not be tough. Indiana was just 2-10. On the road to Wisconsin, Camp Randall. That's tough. 9-4 last year. On the road to a much improved Nebraska. They were 3-9 last year. On the road to Michigan, who was 12-2 last year. And then finally the road trip to Northwestern, who was 3-9. Number 9 out of the Big Ten as far as most difficult schedule. That's going to be Minnesota. They were 9-4 last year. Here's a look at their home slate. They got New Mexico State, a terrible independent team who went 2-10 last year. Western Illinois is their FCS opponent. And they grabbed Colorado out of the Pac-12 and went 4-8. They also get Purdue at home and went 9-4. Rutgers at home and went 5-8. Northwestern at home and went 3-9. And Iowa, who went 10-4 last year. It is their road slate. I think this is very, very difficult. They go on the road to Michigan State, who was 11-2. On the road to an underrated Illinois, who was 5-7. On the road to the whiteout, Penn State, 7-6. On the road to a much improved Nebraska, who was 3-9. And on the road to Camp Randall and the jump around, Wisconsin, who went 9-4. That road slate is more difficult than the teams that are below them. And that's why they're at number 9. Number 8 on this list, and that's going to be Rutgers. They went 5-8 last year. Look out for Rutgers. I think they can make a bowl this year. Here's their home slate. Wagner is their FCS opponent. They drew Iowa out of the West, who went 10-4. Nebraska out of the West, who went 3-9. Then they get Indiana at home, who went 2-10. Michigan at home, who went 12-2. And then Penn State at home, who went 7-6. But they have 6 road trips. The sheer quantity mixed in with quality makes this a tough road slate. They get Boston College on the road, who's an ACC team. They were 6-6. They get Temple out of the AAC, who went 3-9. Ohio State on the road to the Horseshoe, 11-2 last year. Minnesota on the road, who went 9-4. Michigan State on the road, who went 11-2. And Maryland on the road, who went 7-6. That is a tough road slate, but their out of conference bumped them down just a little bit. But the road slate made up for it, and that's why they're at number 8. Now on to number 7. This is the upper half. These are the tougher schedules in the Big Ten, in my opinion, in 2022. Number 7 is going to be Nebraska. They went 3-9 last year. I do think they'll be much better. Let's face it, they were the best 3-9 team probably of all time last year. Here's a look at their home slate. They get Northwestern at home, 3-9. North Dakota is their FCS. They get Georgia Southern out of the Sun Belt, who went 3-9. Oklahoma out of the Big 12, but it's a home game this year. They went 11-2 last year. They get Indiana at home, who was 2-10 last year. Illinois, a tricky Illinois, who went 5-7 last year. Minnesota's a home game, 9-4. And Wisconsin is going to be a home game this year, 9-4. Just 4 road trips. First, a road trip to Rutgers, they went 5-8 last year. But then a road trip to Purdue, who went 9-4. That's a tough place to win at. A road trip to Michigan, who was 12-2. And then a road trip to Kinnick. I'm talking about Iowa, who went 10-4. Those 3 road trips, Purdue, Michigan, and Iowa, that's brutal right there. And that's why Nebraska's at number 7. Number 6, the 6th toughest schedule in the Big Ten. That's going to be Ohio State. They went 11-2. I do like their out of conference. They grabbed Notre Dame, who's an independent. We all know that. Notre Dame went 11-2 last year, but it is a home game. They also got Arkansas State. That's a home game out of the Sun Belt, who went 2-10 last year. Toledo out of the MAC, who went 7-6. Wisconsin, they drew them out of the West, but it is a home game, who went 9-4 last year. Rutgers, who went 5-8. Iowa out of the West, but that's also a home game. They went 10-4. Then they get Indiana at home, who went 2-10, and Michigan, who went 12-2. So I like their out of conference, coupled with the fact that they drew Wisconsin and Iowa out of the West, and then their road slate. Just 4 games, but 2 of them look legit. You got Michigan State on the road. They went 11-2. On the road to Penn State and that whiteout, who went 7-6. Northwestern, who went 3-9, and Maryland, who went 7-6. So not the worst road slate. It's that plus the out of conference with Notre Dame, and they drew Wisconsin and Iowa out of the West. Probably the 2 toughest teams out of the West. However, those 2 were home games, so that's why they're at number 6 and not higher. Number 5 on this list, that's going to be Maryland. They went 7-6 last year. Here's their home slate. They drew Buffalo out of the MAC, who went 4-8 last year. SMU out of the AAC, who went 8-4. Michigan State's a home game, 11-2 last year. Purdue's a home game, 9-4 last year. Northwestern's going to be a home game, 3-9. They do get the Buckeyes, Ohio State at home, 11-2 last year, and Rutgers, who went 5-8. Here's their road slate. This is a tough road slate. They do get Charlotte on the road. That's a Conference USA team, but they also had to go to Michigan, who went 12-2 last year, to Indiana. They went 2-10, not very good. Wisconsin, Camp Randall, who went 9-4 last year, and Penn State, they got to go to that whiteout, who went 7-6 last year. So the road slate is really what bumped Maryland up. Number 4 on this list, and that's going to be Wisconsin. They went 9-4 last year. Here's their home slate. Illinois State is their FCS opponent. They get Washington State out of the Pac-12, who went 7-6. New Mexico State, a terrible independent, who went 2-10 last year. Illinois is a home game, who went 5-7. Purdue's a home game, who went 9-4. They get Maryland at home, who went 7-6. And Minnesota, that's also a home game. They went 9-4. But their road slate, my gosh, this is ridiculous. They have to go on the road to Ohio State, who went 11-2. So they drew the Buckeyes out of the East. They go on the road to Northwestern, who went 3-9. On the road to Michigan State, who went 11-2. So they also drew the Spartans out of the East. They go on the road to Kinnick, that's Iowa, who went 10-4 last year. And then on the road to a much improved Nebraska, who went 3-9 last year. So the road slate is tough, and they drew both Ohio State and Michigan State out of the East. 2 of the tougher teams out of the Big Ten East. And that's why Wisconsin's at number 4. Number 3 on this list, that's going to be Indiana. They went 2-10 last year. And of course, Indiana can't play themselves. So that automatically is going to make their schedule just a little bit tougher. Here's a look at their home slate. First, they get Illinois at home, who went 5-7. That's not a tough draw out of the West. Idaho is their FCS opponent. They get Western Kentucky out of Conference USA, who went 9-5. They get Michigan at home, who went 12-2. Maryland at home, who went 7-6. Penn State at home, who went 7-6. And also Purdue. That's a good draw out of the West, but that's a home game. They went 9-4 last year. This road slate, this is absolutely brutal. Their out-of-conference road game is at Cincinnati. Remember, they hosted Cincinnati last year. Well, this year they had to go to Cincinnati. And Cincinnati went 13-1. I don't think Cincinnati is going to be quite as good, but that's still a tough road test right there. They have to go on the road to Nebraska, who's going to be much improved. They were 3-9. On the road to Rutgers, who went 5-8. On the road to Ohio State, who went 11-2. They have to go to the Horseshoe. And on the road to Michigan State, who went 11-2 as well. So tough road slate for Indiana. Number 2 on my list, the second toughest schedule in the Big Ten, in my opinion, is going to be Iowa. They went 10-4 last year. Here's a look at their home slate. South Dakota State is their FC opponent, but that's probably the best FC opponent you can actually schedule. Maybe there's a few that's better, but not very many. You also got Iowa State, their in-state rival, at home. They went 7-6 last year. They actually grabbed Nevada out of the Mountain West. Nevada's a pretty good team. They went 8-5 last year. They drew Michigan out of the East, but it is a home game. Michigan went 12-2 last year. Northwestern, that's a home game, 3-9. Wisconsin, who went 9-4, and Nebraska, who went 3-9. Check out this road slate. They go on the road to Rutgers, who went 5-8. On the road to Illinois, who went 5-7. On the road to Ohio State. They have to go to the Horseshoe, who went 11-2. On the road to Purdue, who went 9-4. And on the road to Minnesota, who also went 9-4. So the combination of their out-of-conference, which was Iowa State and Nevada, that's pretty decent. And couple that with the fact that they drew Michigan and Ohio State out of the East. One at home, one on the road. And that's a tough road slate. So that's why I have Iowa at the number 2 spot. But there is one schedule that beat Iowa's. And I think that's going to be Penn State's. They went 7-6 last year. This is a tough schedule. In my opinion, the toughest schedule in the Big Ten. Here's their home slate. They drew Ohio out of the MAC, who's 3-9. They drew Central Michigan. They're also out of the MAC, who went 9-4. They drew Northwestern out of the West, 3-9. Minnesota out of the West, who went 9-4. They do get Ohio State at home, who went 11-2. Maryland at home, 7-6. And Michigan State at home, 11-2. But check out this road slate. This is absolutely filthy. They go on the road to Indiana. That might not be tough. Indiana's rebuilding right now. They went 2-10 last year. On the road to Rutgers, and I'm telling you, Rutgers is going to make a bowl this year. Rutgers went 5-8 last year. And then these last 3. On the road to Purdue, who went 9-4. On the road to Auburn, who went 6-7. But don't let that fool you. It is very difficult to win at Jordan-Hare. And on the road to Michigan, who went 12-2 last year. So their out-of-conference is not all that impressive except for that Auburn game. And they drew a road trip to Purdue out of the West, and they have to go to Michigan. That is a tough schedule. Y'all let me know in the comment section, where did I get it right and where did I get it wrong? That's all I got for you for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.